All right, so let's take a deep dive, shall we, into PennyMac Financial Services and their recent quarterly earnings report. I know you're probably pretty interested to kind of get beyond just those headlines and
Yeah.
really try to understand what's actually going on with them. So,
Yeah,
like on
well,
the surface, the news wasn't all that great. They missed their earnings per share estimates by 21 cents a share. So,
yeah,
definitely not what investors were hoping for. But like with any good detective novel, there's always more to the story, right?
absolutely. You can't just judge a book by its cover. If we're just purely focusing on the EPS miss, we're not getting the full story about PennyMac's financial health.
Yeah, and to help us kind of unpack this a bit, we're really lucky to have some really insightful analysis from L Impact Solutions to guide us. And they're a pretty well-known source in the financial world for this kind of deep dive. You can check out their work at www.lokitools.net. And they've highlighted some pretty interesting points that I think go way beyond that EPS figure. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. And as L Impact Solutions pointed out, while the EPS miss, it's concerning, PennyMac actually has a pretty impressive return on equity of
Wow.
15.13%,
Wow.
which tells us that they're still efficiently deploying capital
Mhm.
and generating returns for their shareholders.
How-
And actually, that ROE is outperforming a lot of their peers, especially given the current interest rate environment.
So even in a tough market, it sounds like they're doing a pretty good job of making money for investors. That's pretty impressive. What about their net margin? I think L Impact Solutions highlighted that as well, right?
They did. PennyMac's net margin sits at 11.45%,
Okay.
which again is pretty healthy. It indicates that they're managing their costs effectively and they're retaining a decent portion of their revenue after they cover all their expenses. Now the question is that sustainable? Can they continue to maintain this margin without sacrificing
Mhm.
things like customer service? Or maybe cutting corners in other areas? That's something investors are going to be watching pretty closely.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, it sounds like their financials aren't quite as doom and gloom as that initial EPS miss might have suggested. They're still generating profits. Yeah. And they seem to be managing their costs pretty effectively. But let's be real. PennyMac isn't operating in a vacuum. The market is. Oh. Let's just say it's thrown some curveballs lately.
Yeah.
So how does that factor into all of this?
It's a really crucial factor. I mean, the Federal Reserve has been making moves to combat inflation, right? Raising interest rates.
Right.
And that's had a ripple effect throughout the housing market. And for a mortgage lender like PennyMac, those fluctuating interest rates are a major challenge.
Yeah. I mean,
Higher interest rates are going to make mortgages more expensive, right?
Hmm.
Especially for first-time home buyers, which
Yeah.
is going to chill demand. And that directly impacts PennyMac's origination volume. It's a tough spot to be in.
it is. And as L Impact Solutions point out, we're also seeing these shifts in the housing market itself. I mean, home prices are still rising in a lot of areas.
But supply chain disruptions and changing buyer preferences are kind of adding another layer of complexity here.
So it's not just economic forces at play here,
Mm.
but also shifting demographics and lifestyle choices. It's all kind of intertwined, right?
Exactly, like trying to navigate a ship through a storm while the map keeps changing. And that's what makes having a solid strategy so crucial for PennyMac right now.
Yeah, and that's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? What is PennyMac doing to navigate these choppy waters
Yeah.
and kind of get back on course? What should investors be looking for from them?
Well, I think first and foremost, transparency
Mhm.
and decisive action are key. And L Impact Solutions really emphasize that in their analysis. PennyMac needs to be upfront with investors about how they're approaching these challenges. What does their cost structure look like? How are they going to improve efficiency? What's their overall game plan to stay competitive? In this shifting landscape,
Yeah, it's all about building trust, right? Especially when there's so much uncertainty swirling around. Giving investors confidence that PennyMac is in control, even when the market feels a bit out of control.
precisely. And on a more granular level, there's a huge opportunity for them to leverage technology to streamline operations and improve the customer experience. Thinking about things like automation, enhanced online platforms,
Yeah.
and data analytics to personalize their services.
Yeah, data analytics. That was a key insight from L Impact Solutions. I was really struck by that section of their analysis. It's not just about crunching numbers. It's about really understanding consumer behavior,
Mm.
predicting trends, and making smarter decisions about things like underwriting and risk management.
Yeah, it's about turning that data
Yeah.
into actionable insights. And in a fast-paced, dynamic market like real estate, that can be a real game changer.
Absolutely. So streamlining operations, embracing technology, becoming more data-driven. Those all seem like really essential strategies for PennyMac to regain its footing. But what about diversifying their revenue streams. Could that be part of the solution as well?
That's definitely something that analysts are watching for. Right now, PennyMac is heavily reliant on the mortgage market, which, as we've discussed, is facing some pretty serious headwinds. So exploring new financial products or services, or even, forming strategic partnerships could help them spread the risk a bit and create a more stable revenue base.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket,
Mhm.
especially when that basket's a little wobbly, right?
Exactly. And that diversification, combined with a laser focus on operational efficiency and smart use of technology, could put PennyMac in a really strong position for long-term success.
It sounds like the next few months are going to be pretty critical. They've got a lot of work to do,
Hmm.
but they've also got some pretty solid strengths to build on.
Absolutely. I think the next earnings call
Hmm.
will be particularly telling. Investors will be listening very intently to what management has to say
Got it.
about their strategies and outlook for the future.
For sure. You know, this whole conversation really underscores the value of resources like L-Impact Solutions. Their analysis gives us such a clear and insightful picture of PennyMac's situation. And it helps us understand that broader market context, too. For anyone who wants to dig a little deeper, I'd highly recommend checking out their website, www.lokitools.net.
I couldn't agree more. They do a fantastic job of breaking down complex financial information and making it accessible, a valuable resource for anyone who wants to stay informed about the market.
So true. Now, before we wrap up, I always like to leave our listeners with something to think about, a question to ponder. What innovative strategies could PennyMac leverage to not just recover, but to truly thrive in this evolving real estate landscape? It's a tough market out there, but I believe there's always room for creativity and ingenuity.
That's a great question, and it's one I'm sure is top of mind. For PennyMac's leadership team, it'll be interesting to see what solutions they come up with.
Indeed. Perhaps they'll find some inspiration in the insights provided by L-Impact Solutions. You can find them at www.lokitools.net. They really do offer a wealth of information on PennyMac and other companies.
Definitely a great resource to bookmark.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you found this exploration insightful. And remember, knowledge is power. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
It's all intertwined.
Yeah, it is. And it makes me think about, what can PennyMac actually do about this? Like, how can they navigate all this, get back on track?
Right.
What should investors be looking for from them?
Well, I think they need a solid strategy.
Okay.
That's number one. And I think analysts and investors are going to be looking for some transparency from PennyMac about how they're going to move forward. What's their plan?
Transparent.
What are they going to focus on to restore some confidence?
Yeah.
So that's really going to be key.
Yeah.
I think a few things come to mind.
Okay.
Number one, streamlining operations. How can they become more efficient?
Right.
And that's something that, we hear a lot about.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be more important than ever for them.
Okay.
Leveraging technology.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of opportunity to really embrace technology.
Yeah.
To help improve their processes, improve the customer experience.
Right.
Things like automation.
Okay.
Enhanced online platforms.
Yeah.
Using data analytics.
Yeah.
To really get a better sense of how to personalize their services.
Data analytics was a key insight from L-Impact Solutions. I was really struck by that. It's not just about crunching numbers, but it's really about understanding consumer behavior, right?
Right.
Predicting trends.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
making smarter decisions about underwriting and risk management.
Exactly. You've got to turn that data into something that you can actually use to make good decisions, actionable insights. And in a fast-paced, dynamic market like real estate, that can be really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So streamlining operations, embracing technology, becoming more data-driven. That all sounds really important for them to get back on track.
Good.
But
A lot of...
diversifying their revenue streams.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Could that be part of the solution as well?
I think that is definitely something that analysts are going to be watching for.
Okay.
Right now they're pretty heavily reliant on the mortgage market, which, as we've discussed, is facing some headwinds.
Yeah.
So exploring new financial products or services, or even forming strategic partnerships, that could help them spread the risk a bit and maybe create a more stable revenue base.
So not putting all their eggs in one basket, especially when the basket's a bit wobbly right now.
Exactly. And I think that diversification, combined with that laser focus on operational efficiency.
Hmm.
And that smart use of technology could really put PennyMac in a strong position for the long term.
Yeah. And it sounds like the next few months are going to be pretty critical for them. They've got a lot of work to do.
Yep.
But it also sounds like they've got some pretty solid strengths to build on.
Yeah, I think the next earnings call will be particularly telling. Investors will be listening closely to what management has to say about their strategies.
Yeah.
And what their outlook for the future is.
Yeah, for sure. You know, this whole conversation really kind of underscores the value of resources like L-Impact Solutions.
For sure.
You know, their analysis just gives us such a clear and insightful picture of PennyMac's situation. And it helps us to understand that broader market context too,
Absolutely.
you know, for anyone who wants to. Kind of dig a little deeper into this. I highly recommend checking out their website. It's www.itailokitools.net.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They really do a great job of breaking down complex financial information.
Wow.
Making it really accessible. So it's a really valuable resource for anyone that wants to, stay informed about what's going on.
So true. So
Yes.
where does this leave PennyMac? What's the bottom line here?
Well, I think it's clear this. The EPS miss isn't the whole story. Their return on equity and their net margin show that they have a strong foundation, strong fundamentals.
Okay.
But there's no denying that. These current market conditions, they're challenging. So
Yeah.
it's really going to come down to how they respond to those challenges.
They're facing this perfect storm of rising interest rates, shifting housing market, changing consumer behaviors.
Yeah.
It's really about how they respond. That's going to determine their future.
Exactly. They got to be proactive, strategic, and transparent in their actions moving forward.
Okay.
They really need to show investors that they're not just, weathering the storm, but that they're actually charting a course toward a brighter future.
And with the right strategies in place,
Yeah.
maybe they can emerge from this even stronger than before.
That's the hope. And, for listeners that really want to kind of keep a pulse on this.
Yeah.
And get those in-depth insights that can help them make smarter financial decisions. I'd encourage you to check out L-Impact Solutions at www.lackeytools.net.
Great advice. Now let's shift gears for a moment. I always like to wrap up these deep dives with a thought-provoking question for our listeners to ponder.
Yeah, for sure. And we've covered a lot of ground today, from PennyMac's earnings report to, all these broader market forces that are at play. So if you had to boil it all down, what would you say are the key takeaways here?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that PennyMac's really at a crossroads. They've got this solid foundation, strong ROE and net margins, but this challenging market is really forcing them to adapt and change. And I think the decisions that they make in the coming months are going to be crucial to their long-term success.
Absolutely. It's a pivotal moment for them, no doubt.
Yeah,
And
well-
for anyone who's following PennyMac or even, the real estate market in general, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. And this deep dive really highlights the importance of, looking beyond the surface, looking beyond those initial headlines. A single earnings miss doesn't tell the whole story. You really got to understand the context, the underlying trends, and the company's strategic response to the challenges that they're facing.
Yeah, and that's really where a resource like L-Impact Solutions can be so valuable. They provide that in-depth analysis and insight. That helps us all make sense of what can sometimes feel like, a very complex and confusing financial world.
I couldn't agree more. They really have a knack for breaking down that complex information and making it accessible, which is so important, especially for investors who need to stay informed and make smart decisions.
So true. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive, but I really want to thank you for joining us. I hope you found this exploration insightful. And remember, knowledge is power, so keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.